In this video, we're going to speak to the foundation. Everyone is built upon a foundation. And I want you thinking about, in this section, I want you thinking about everything you've gone through to be in this moment that you and I are sharing right now. All of the challenges, all of the obstacles, all of the wins, all of the losses that have allowed you to be in this moment today. I want you to start reflecting on that. Now, up until about 6 years of age, this was the most important time in our lives as children, where we get programmed with how to speak, how to talk, how to show up in public, how to behave at home, and so on. You know, a lot of that is given by our parents and so on. However, sometimes there's some people that maybe go through a lot of trauma during those ages. Maybe they go through a lot of hardships during that time. And when they become adults, it can overflow into their behaviors and their patterns in the future. So I want you to reflect what has programmed you to be where you are today, your foundation. All of us are built upon a foundation. So I want you to picture a skyscraper, a tall building. Now, in order for that building to get tall, to be huge and, almost touch the clouds and so on, the foundation has to be extremely, extremely solid in order for that to happen. That means that concrete right on the ground has to be extremely solid. If there's any cracks, that building has a chance of crumbling over time. So this is extremely important. This is the same thing with human beings. We have a foundation. We've been built upon a series of habits, beliefs, patterns, and so on. And as we go about our days, we have adopted those patterns into our adult life and so on. Now, some of you may be watching right now and may be thinking, well, there's certain things that, I didn't agree with or that don't really serve me right now. I can definitely relate to that. There was many things growing up that when I came into the mainstream from my community, I had to look at things in a different light. I had to challenge different ways of thinking and so on. And in a way that, maybe that doesn't serve me right now. I had to go back through coaching, through counseling, through working through my issues from my past to really understand where I want to go and the things that are holding me back. Because some of the stuff that held me back were in my past, the things that I had to go through as a child. So I want you to reflect. I want you to reflect on what you've gone through. One of the hardest things in order to build that foundation as human beings, to repair those cracks so that we can move forward in a good way, is to address all the stuff that happened in our past. And one of the hardest things to do is to forgive. Forgive ourselves, forgive others who have wronged us. This is one of the most challenging things. And I want to share with you a story on a personal journey that I had to go through so I can get to the next step in my journey. I want you picturing yourself, what you've gone through, and maybe places where you have to go revisit so that you can move forward and advance yourself, your family, your career to where you were meant to go. As a child, I grew up with one parent, my mother. My mother did the best she could with what she had. She sacrificed a lot for myself, my siblings. We ended up in women's shelters. We were struggling. We didn't have a place to live until my grandmother, my kukum, took us in. And we lived with her for a long time until we finally got a little 2-bedroom house on the reserve in Sweetgrass. During that time, my mother did the best she could with what she had, sacrificed her own comfort for myself, my 3 younger sisters. She slept on the couch. I had a room. My sisters all shared a room, and that's how we were living. We grew up on welfare, social assistance. We collected cans and bottles. We went to the pawn shop to pawn our belongings so we can have lunch to go to school. Our only transportation was the bus to and from school. We never had transportation. So there's a lot of things that a lot of my Indigenous brothers and sisters face to this day that we had to go through way back then. As a child, I had a lot of issues towards my own father because I longed for a father to be there in my life growing up. As time progressed and I became a young man, I started to have resentment towards my own father. As time progressed even further and I started to have success as a university student, as an athlete, and eventually starting Nietzsche gear, suddenly there was people that were paying attention to my journey, and people were starting to ask for advice, for mentorship, and so on. And so I did the best with what I could. And then I hit a wall. That wall came when I started to launch my first book, Driven to Succeed. When that book came out, I didn't realize it was going to create a lot of ripple effects, positive, but also a few that were negative. And what it did is it exposed some of the cracks in my own foundation. One of those cracks was the relationship with my father. I had to go back and to fix that. Now, this is a tough part to speak about because some of us, there's people in our life that have really wronged us, and we may say to ourselves, well, I can never forgive that person. I can never let go of that. Here's what I could tell you based on everything that I've been taught, everything from elders, from professionals and so on, and even being in counseling myself. If we don't remove that burden of not being able to forgive people, we do that for ourselves. That's the first thing. We do it for ourselves, not to please people. When you forgive other people, you do that for yourself so you can remove that weight from your backpack, so to speak, so you can feel later, so you can move forward without that having to hold you hostage anymore. If someone's still alive, I encourage you to do what you can to forgive and move on from whatever that person wronged you for. If someone has passed, here's another exercise I was taught. If someone has passed and they've wronged you, I know people that have actually written notes on a piece of paper, and they'll actually either throw them away or they will burn them. And to say that I forgive you, and with the stuff that I went through with you is no longer going to hold me hostage when I move forward to the next spot in my life that I was meant to go through. So forgiveness is one of the toughest things. I remember going as an entrepreneur. I've had staff members that, some of them would talk to me about their challenges in their life. And so I remember one in particular, she had someone that she couldn't forgive. And no matter what she did, she's like, I can never forgive that person. And I watched this person literally suffering because she was not able to move on from a certain scenario that happened to her, someone that wronged her. And slowly, piece by piece, it really was breaking her down. I watched her go from a top performer to a mediocre performer. It was tough to watch. If we do this thing called forgiving other people so we can move forward, not to appease people. So back to my father's story. I had to go back and have a sit down with my own father and say, you know what, Dad, I forgive you. I forgive you for not being there with me. I forgive you for not being there with my siblings. I wanted you there, but now I'm a man. Now going back to the resilience part, overcoming obstacles. There's always a teaching moment in everything. And I told my father that I know why I was not meant to have a father and be in my presence all the time. Because look at me now, I said. There's people all across this country that look up to me as a role model. And I had to become that father that I wish I had. Now I have 2 children. I had to become that husband that I didn't know how to become. I had to act as if I knew who that person was. And I had to go through my own struggles in trying to be that person for my wife so that we can all come together as a healthy family. We went through our struggles. And I had to go through counseling, relationship counseling, coaching, mentorship, and all this type of stuff because I wanted to get to the next step. But one of the hardest things that really held me back was I didn't know how to forgive. I didn't know how to forgive people. My kukum, the one who I talked to you about, she taught me this lesson growing up when I was in grade 1. We were living with her on her living room floor. So every day we fix our beds and make them up in the evenings in the living room on the floor. That's where we stayed. During the day, there'd be people that would come off the res road, and they would come to my kukum's house to visit her. When they'd be visiting her, one of the things that I noticed was that some of these people were positive, but there was many that weren't so positive, or some of them were very negative. And I used to wonder as a kid, why does my kukum put up with this? Why does she allow this to happen all the time? Why does she put herself through this? And as time progressed, and I'm in the future now, I have my own stores, and I'm behind the till, and there's people like that coming into my store, people who are positive, people who are negative, coming to waste your time, to test you. And I thought, man, I know the teaching now. It just hit me. It was like almost 20 years later. She was teaching me how to forgive people the moment they walk into a room, regardless of what they say to you, regardless of what comes out of their mouth, to forgive them. Because those people that wrong you, those people that are testing you, they're going through stuff, not you. They're coming in a way they don't know how to communicate and move on from that stuff. So if they come across your path, they're going to try to dump what they can on you. And they may even love you as a person, but they don't know how to do this in a healthy way. You see, when people walk into a room, they're going to either come in with a good energy or a not so good energy. You'll know that. You know when you want to stay in a room or leave a room based on how it feels. So the next time someone comes into your presence and whatever comes out of their mouth, positive or negative, only accept the positive. You do not have to choose to allow the negativity of other people, the news, social media, to absorb into your livelihood. You don't have to give yourself permission, because we as human beings give other people permission to allow them to speak to us a certain way. When someone speaks, we give ourselves permission to absorb that or not. So I want to encourage you that when someone walks into a room or you walk into a room, forgive people on the fly. They may be going through a tough time. This is all part of your foundation. Your foundation will allow you to go to the next step. Your foundation is also going to be requiring you to invest in yourself, to invest in your higher learning, to make time to learn from others and so on, so you can solidify that foundation to where you're trying to go in your career. Work on your foundation. Don't be afraid to go back and address the things in the past, to make peace, to make amends and so on, because that's going to help you get to where you want to get to much quicker. Now, I want to share with you something else. Oftentimes we look at people on social media, could be an actor, celebrity, musician, and sometimes there's people that, they rise to fame really quickly. And oftentimes what happens with many of these scenarios is overnight, they're a star. The next 3 to 5 years, we usually find something that derails their career in a negative light, something that gets exposed to the world. Maybe they were in a tough relationship. Maybe they did something in the past. Maybe the criminal activity. I don't know what that is. But what I want to share with you is that if we don't take time to repair these cracks in our foundation, if we get somewhere really quickly, it will expose itself quicker. So that's why it's important we take the time to work on ourselves. It's okay to get counseling. It's okay to get therapy. In fact, my belief is that everyone should have a counselor. Why? Because we have smartphones, we have tablets, we have laptops and so on. And all this stuff forces us to use our fingers more than our mouth. This is where we heal. We have to speak truth. We have to speak our feelings. And if we don't allow ourselves to do that, and we do it on our thumbs, that's going to be perceived in a different way from whoever's reading that. You have to speak. This is where emotion comes from. This is where you can influence others in a positive way. This is how you can heal. Speak to others. It's okay to speak to others if you're going through a tough time, if you're needing help and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, the foundation is important. The further you go, the more you have to check that foundation to make sure that there's no cracks there. Keep moving forward in a healthy way and keep increasing the foundation, and you'll keep moving forward in your path, your career.